Hello, guys and gals. Me, Mutahar. I was away this weekend, so unfortunately I couldn't talk about today's topic. I know that other creators have already talked about it. I know that, it's kind of old news by now, but it's just such an insane topic that I have to discuss it, and a lot of it has to do with computer hacking and, of course, cybersecurity, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a clip that I'm about to show you from an individual who has stage 4 cancer. And surprisingly, the one good thing in cryptocurrency happened, okay? This is a guy that had stage 4 cancer known as Rastaland TV. This is a coin where, again, money was raised through the community to pay for this person's cancer treatments, right? Now, out of all the things that I've seen in the world of crypto, dollar cancer might be the kindest, most wholesome thing that I've seen. And that's huge, okay? Remember, this is the same website where we were discharging firearms into the air. Anybody can be a developer on this dogwater platform, but when somebody has stage 4 cancer, when somebody has cancer, okay, arguably the worst, what's worse than faking your cancer is stealing from someone that has cancer. So this clip kind of hurts to watch, and I'll let you guys play it because I think you need to experience the same level of anger that I have.
No, 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 no. No. No.
I'm not gonna lie, man, that clip really hurts, okay? Just the wailing, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm fucking mad, okay? All right? If you steal from cancer, if you steal from people that have cancer, you deserve to get fucking butt-fucked for the rest of your life with a rusty knife, okay? God damn. My life was saved for a whole 24 hours until someone tuned into my stream and got me to download a verified game on Steam. After this, I was drained for over 32,000 US dollars of my creator fees earned on Pump.Fun, and everything quickly changed. I can't breathe, I can't think, I'm completely lost on what is going to happen next. Now, from my understanding, a bunch of other people came together and raised money for this guy, so the money is still stolen, don't get me wrong, but at least as far as, and there's plenty of victims, this guy might appear to have been gotten whole, okay? But anyways, what game on Steam could have actually had this guy's stuff stolen? So this is a game called Block Blasters. Now this is a SteamDB page, and it's by a company called Genesis Interactive. Now looking into their entire play history, they've apparently never gotten above 10 actual active players a day. But apparently they've got plenty of victims. So G-Data Cyber Defense brought this game to people's attention. Now, if you look at the actual cover for this game, you might notice that, whoa, is that AI generated? I would wager that most of this game, and I haven't played it by the way, I haven't analyzed it myself, but it looks to be very AI generated shit. Now, there's a free-to-play game on Steam, which if you ever looked at the free section, there's a lot of free shit on Steam all the time. And there's a reason why I don't download free stuff, because this isn't the first time this has happened on Steam. Earlier, I believe this year, was a game called PirateFi, which also contained malware on Steam. Steam has a huge info stealer, cryptocurrency draining malware issue. Now, the thing about it is, did Valve know? Honestly, I don't know if Valve entirely knew about this. But obviously the game was removed when the entire community started raising awareness about it, right? When people were like, whoa, now that over $100,000 has been stolen, not just from a cancer patient, but just in general, yeah, obviously Valve jumped in and removed the game. But I think it's a little bit too late, because ultimately, one of the things about Steam, and this goes for anything like the App Store, the Google Play Store, when you have these platforms, I feel like if you're willing to take 30% cuts on people or just host stuff onto your platform, you should do the extra due diligence, especially if you're making Valve money, especially if you're making Apple money, especially if you're making Google money. You should absolutely make sure whatever shit gets uploaded to your storefront should not have fucking malware in it. So how did this malware kind of work? Well, thankfully, the guys behind it seem to be expert vibe coders. So for a while, this actual shit used to sit on Steam pretty fine. This was the actual Steam page. And other than, just what you're seeing over here, it was a pretty innocuous looking game. So obviously, there was a patch that was pushed to the game that introduced a few files. So here you can see inside the actual file structure, which was, gathered from SteamDB, it came with game2.bat, which would be launched and deliver a actual payload to you. It would also have third-party OGG v1 and v3. So these files were added into people's systems long after the game had come out. So for a while, there wasn't actually malware sitting. But game2.bat actually did a few things that were a little bit not kosher, if you will. So a lot of the values in some of these batch files actually contained hard-coded values, like for instance, setting a password as 121, dealing with 7zip.exe. But of course, obviously, it would launch a bunch of VBS scripts. These VBS scripts, when launched onto the user system, would start to look for people's extensions on their web browsers. So for instance, it would start scanning for Chrome, for Edge, for Brave, Vivaldi, Opera Stable, and Opera GX2. So one of the actual malware runs that I saw over here provided by the individuals who, were running this inside AnyRun, which is a sandbox, a little virtual machine for you guys to see what a malware will do. Now, of course, underneath this, you can see that for Chrome, just for instance, looking into the extension data, it was looking for Phantom, MetaMask, Magic Eden, TronLink, MetaMask Edge, Soulflare, BitGet Wallet. So as soon as it would get people's, personal information and their crypto wallets, obviously the draining would then occur. And this draining would drain individuals out of their fucking money. So if you were somebody that had your cryptocurrency wallet stored onto your system, and here's the thing. I'm not going to sit here and say and be Professor or Captain Hindsight. Look, at the end of the day, I'm a paranoid fuck, and I just use virtual machines and hardened systems all day, every day. So I really don't worry about it. I could have ran this malware in this game and just laughed it off. But for an individual who was on stream and they were told by, just the chat, hey, download this game and play it, most people don't have that understanding. Most people don't know what's going on. There was another streamer as well, a streamer that I believe is known as Heiny88. Now, Heiny88 actually apparently downloaded this game. She ran it, and even she realized, okay, things don't really make sense over here, but it was too late. Once she ran the game, which also launched the bat file, which launched those VBS scripts, all of this was done, and it was too little too late. Okay, social media accounts are fucked. Crypto accounts are starting to get drained. It's pretty much something that is basically irreversible, especially when it comes to things like cryptocurrency. The most we can do is look into cryptocurrency transactions and start tagging money transactions and saying this batch of crypto is bad. Which, if you've ever been to Etherscan or any crypto scanning service, anytime a heist happens, usually the actual wallet address that performs the heist gets tagged as criminal or fraudulent. And that means any money, people look at that stuff like a hawk. So that's maybe the only saving grace. But once the money is gone, the money is gone, okay? There's not much you can do in the world of decentralized finance to get your shit back. So there was a couple things that came out of this story that immediately raised my attention. As I was flying back yesterday, apparently it seems like the guy who apparently was behind this hack, the mastermind, had actually gotten exposed. Now, I want to just shout out the guys over at International Cyber Digest and, of course, VX Underground. Smelly, awesome fucking dude, really great guy. And they went through the efforts of actually looking through and identifying who this person was. So the way that this happened was a bunch of nerds, a bunch of OSINT nerds, okay, people whose, fucking background it is to look up the tiny username that you have and run it through God knows how many different scripts, how many different search engines to build a profile of people based on a nugget of information on the internet. Now, a lot of these scammers and hackers don't really have what I would like to call good compartmentalization, which sometimes what will happen is, let's say you have an email somewhere and you're really careful on site A, but on site B, you're giving off all the information that could be used to fucking identify you. People will Google on the internet to find any time that email is used, and they'll find it on site A, B, C, D, E, and F. And using that information, they will start to build a profile. It's actually pretty similar to back in the day when I worked with CoffeeZilla on something known as Rubet. When we investigated that, we literally were operating with screen names and eventually worked our way to actually talking to the people who were behind this website, okay? People that didn't want to be identified, and obviously they went through great lengths to be very anonymous, but you can't, if you're not careful from the beginning, it can really bite you on the ass. So basically, like most scammers, they operated on a service known as Telegram. Now, the thing is, ultimately, these people had Telegram IDs. And once you have somebody's Telegram ID, you can go to public-facing chat rooms in Telegram and find similar IDs. So a lot of the OSINT guys took that ID that they found, one of them at least, and started to look through all of the public-facing records they could find. And eventually they came across posts that started to identify who this person was. So for instance, one of the scammers, and there's multiple people in the story, one of them was apparently on several other chat rooms trying to figure out how to do fraudulent work, to the point where apparently they were hiring somebody to do basic 2D game development. Now here's the thing about all of this shit, right? In another chat room, they were apparently sharing photos of themselves with expensive vehicles. And eventually they had a link tree that they found, which basically gave you everything you needed to know. Things like YouTube channels, PayPal's, Kick, Twitter, a lot of things that started to disappear overnight. Now, of course, I can confirm if the guy that is being talked about, we'll call him Lopez, because that's the name being shared around on most of the news sites. I can't 100% verify this because I haven't 100% checked it for myself. But wearing what appears to be Rolly watches, and of course drinking Dom Perignon, which is a pretty expensive bottle of champagne, you can see that, yes, stealing money from cancer patients doesn't really register in the level of ethical, morality that most people tend to have. Now, of course, I can't 1,000,000% confirm this guy, so I'm not going to 100% back this sort of claim. But ultimately, there has been other things talked about, like apparently ICE was reported, like this guy was reported to ICE, they jumped in and arrested him, which is totally false. There's no confirmation of that, okay? This is a wild week for alleged criminals, okay? We've got problems in the LAPD when it comes to guys like David, and of course, with people behind this, it's only a matter of time before you do actually end up getting caught. But again, I don't really know what the whole laws are around arresting people in crypto scams. It really feels like people who do crypto scams, even if you know exactly who they are, rarely get the fucking penalty dropped onto them. It's really just a public shame fest that usually you get the best of out of all these situations. That's the furthest these things tend to go. So look, at the end of the day, with this one Steam game that they dropped with hundreds of downloads, right? And again, 5,100 downloads, not terribly bad. In the last 7 days, they were just basically going to Kick chats or Telegrams and telling people to download this stuff. Places where people usually have their crypto wallets attached to browsers on their system. Now, I would wager that a lot of these crypto bros probably don't practice good computer hygiene. So the ability for this highly specialized phishing attack probably did yield, and did actually seem to yield pretty good results. And look, ultimately, at the end of the day, this is the reason why I don't ever fucking do anything like crypto related on my channel, just because the community is so morally fucking bankrupt. I think most of the times anybody's ever offered me a crypto deal or promoted Web3 to me, there's never been a point, aside from even just this story with dollar cancer, where obviously the money I guess is being raised for somebody that had a pretty serious illness. But generally, in 99.9% of the cases, I feel that crypto is just such a degenerate area to get into. And stories like this make me feel that as a technology, it once was kind of promising. And maybe it does have the use cases. Obviously, I think with stuff like Monero, the anonymity kind of helps. That's, decentralized finance is kind of cool to look at, okay? But in practice, looking at the players in the game and just constantly reading story after story of all these scams, it just is such a blackpilling experience on all of this shit. So yeah, TLDR, there's a piece of malware that gets dropped on Steam. The malware drains people's crypto wallets, and it turns out, because it was vibe coded, it seemed. And look, the thing about this stuff is, before I end it, is the world of malware and the world of, again, these scammers has gotten so easy thanks to things like AIs and LLMs. You can code together, software underneath, big AI LLM tools like ChatGPT, Claude's Anthropic's Claude, sorry, or I think it's Google's Gemini. You can use a lot of these tools to basically write entire programs for you. Even if you don't want to use these services, you can download local models like GPT OSS and have it write entire software for you. But a lot of these LLMs do come with safeguards that prevent you from using them for nefarious malware purposes. But that doesn't stop users from downloading uncensored LLMs and telling them to code malware. Writing computer viruses and writing this kind of slop has gotten so easy that dipshits who had no idea how to fucking turn on their MacBook before this year can now figure out through a 10-minute YouTube video how to put together malware. And the malware doesn't have to be like fucking crazy good or anything. You don't have to write like NSA grade military malware. You're writing something that ultimately is a crypto drainer. The only saving grace, and I think one of the reasons why the guys over at VX Underground, a lot of people identified, was because it really seemed like the malware was written by a bunch of vibe coders. They left in just enough to help OSINT nerds identify the people behind them. So that was arguably the only saving grace. Now, if you're somebody that's worried about downloading a game on Steam now because it's a new fear that you've unlocked, keep that fear. Because honest to God, if Valve isn't cleaning up their store, you might need to be a little bit extra careful and be worrisome about what kind of software you download on Steam. Generally, if you're downloading a big AAA game or even a respectable indie title like, Silk Song that just came out, you'll be fine. But if there's a free-to-play game on Steam that looks a little too AI slop for you, you should stay far away, okay? You should get your foot out of the fucking bear trap because there's a good chance you can end up like some of the victims here and have your money or even your, social media accounts or just accounts in general stolen. Fucked up world we live in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, I am out.